Welcome to this explainer. Let's just jump right into the punishing, sweaty palm-inducing, and absolutely fascinating world of Dark Souls. If you've played it, you already know the feeling, right? The racing heart, the panic rolling, the seemingly unfair deaths. Well, today, we're going to use one of the game's most infamous early roadblocks, the terrifying Taurus Demon, to reveal the hidden mechanical architecture behind the game's brutal reputation. We're going to see exactly what makes this nightmare tick. Because it's the ultimate question every single player screams at their TV after seeing that "you died" screen for the dozenth time. We're going to uncover why the game feels so unpredictable. Is its punishing combat truly just a random sequence of bad luck? Or is there a meticulously designed engine operating just out of sight, reacting to your every single move?
Section 1. Meet the Taurus Demon.
As you walk the narrow ramparts of the Undead Burg, the game builds this incredible tension for your first real test. Oscar of Astor's opening words, "Thou who art undead, art chosen," set a grim, solemn tone. You quickly realize you aren't just fighting mindless monsters. You are wandering through the graveyard of a fallen kingdom, and its inhabitants are definitely not happy to see you.
Take the Taurus Demon. This beast isn't just some random mob dropped onto a bridge to ruin your day. He's actually a survivor of an ancient war. Spawned from the catastrophic bed of chaos by the Witch of Izalith, these lesser demons fought against Gwyn's Silver Knights. Now this particular guy has claimed the ruined Undead Burg as his personal domain, wielding a massive great axe literally carved from the bones of his fallen brethren. How metal is that?
So you're up against an absolute unit. With over 1,200 health points on a standard run, he's a massive tank for a low-level player. But classic from Software, the developer has left you some breadcrumbs. He has very specific elemental weaknesses, particularly to lightning and fire. If you explored a bit earlier and picked up some gold point resin or black fire bombs, you already have the exact tools you need to exploit his vulnerabilities. Section 2. Fight, cheese, or skip. Over the years, the community has completely deconstructed this encounter, figuring out wildly different ways to deal with this early game wall. First, there's the intended playbook. The game subtly teaches you how to fight fair. You climb the ladder, take out those two pesky undead archers so you aren't getting shot in the back, and then you use the arena's verticality. You bait the demon near the tower, climb up, and drop a massive plunging attack right on his head. After that, slap on your gold pine resin, roll bravely right between his legs to dodge his sweeps, and chip away. But hey, what if you prefer a slightly less honorable victory? Well, you can absolutely cheese him. Players figured out that you can manipulate the game's physics and the demon's massive momentum. You spawn him, sprint to the gap in the broken wall, bait a huge attack, and just carefully pivot. The demon, mid-swing, will clumsily hurl his massive body right off the edge of the bridge to his death. It is a hilarious subversion of the game's terrifying atmosphere. Or, for those looking to avoid the hassle entirely, the game's interconnected world offers some crazy skips. You can take a perilous detour using the Master Key, tiptoeing through high-level zones like the Valley of Drakes. Or, if you're a speedrunner feeling spicy, you can pull off a mind-bending jump glitch, literally leaping off a roof in the Undead Burg to plummet directly down into the Lower Burg Capra Demon Courtyard, totally bypassing the bridge. But let's say you do fight him head-on. The Taurus Demon is absolutely relentless, throwing jumping pounds and giant swings in a mix that feels impossible to predict. Which really begs the question, what is actually happening under the hood? When you stand face-to-toe with this monster, how does the software decide its exact next move to crush you? Section 3. The AI behind the demons. To really pull back the curtain, we need to talk about how Dark Souls utilizes a pretty rare artificial intelligence system called a hierarchical goal network, or HGN. Most games just use simple state machines, a rigid script that basically says if the player is close, attack. But an HGN is way different. It constantly shifts priorities on the fly. It gives an enemy a broad, top-level goal, like engage in battle, but then lets the AI actively add, complete, or abandon smaller sub-goals based on what you, the player, are doing in that exact millisecond. This brilliantly illustrates how an enemy actually plans a combo over time. It's literally plotting against you. An NPC might execute a dodge roll, but within this HGN system, it immediately tacks on sub-goals. It thinks, okay, I rolled. My next sub-goal is to block the player's incoming attack, and the sub-goal after that is to execute a counterstrike. It isn't just playing a canned animation, it is actively calculating a sequence of reactions to your specific position. Section 4. Spinning the combat wheel. So, Within that dynamic system, how does the engine choose a specific attack without becoming entirely predictable? Probabilities. To make this super clear, let's look at another boss, the Great Gray Wolf Sif. Sif has 5 mean attacks. The AI doesn't just pick one at random with a flat 20% chance. It builds a probability distribution. The AI is literally spinning an invisible weighted wheel. A horizontal swing might take up a massive 45% chunk of that wheel, while a charge only gets a tiny 5% sliver. But here is where the absolute genius lies. The slices of this probability wheel aren't static. They are constantly shapeshifting. If you sprint away from the Taurus Demon, the game dynamically inflates the probability of his jumping pound attack to maybe 80% so he can close the gap. But if you try to hide directly underneath his legs, the wheel morphs, and suddenly the quick ground stab takes up 70% of the wheel. The AI is recalculating the odds constantly based on your distance, your health, and the current phase of the fight. And understanding this shape-shifting wheel is exactly why cheeses work in Dark Souls. Players are essentially just finding blind spots in the math. Take the famous stair melee trick against the ceaseless discharge boss. The AI's wheel perfectly calculates how far away the player is, but the developers didn't program it to factor in elevation. So by standing on a specific spot on the stairs, players completely trick the AI. You're standing in a mathematical blind spot, forcing the boss to repeatedly miss or lock into completely predictable loops. The illusion of unpredictable, random brutality is actually a carefully crafted mathematical system. Every single swing, every dodge, every punishing combo is driven by this finely tuned, probability-driven design. The developers manually adjusted these wheel slices to keep you on your toes, ensuring no two fights ever play out exactly the same way, while still allowing for ultimate mastery once you learn to read the system.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I'll leave you with this final thought for your next trip to Lordran. The next time you see those glowing red "You died" letters pop up on your screen, ask yourself, did you just get a bad spin on the game's combat wheel? Or did your positioning, your panic rolling, and your timing hand the engine the exact mathematical variables it needed to decisively end your run? The genius of Dark Souls is that the answer is almost always up to you. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you on the next one.